This is update from November 12th, 2022, day 262 of the war, and of the date update. So it's fairly quiet day on both strategic topics and on the battlefield. Just very few data points in terms of general developments in the world. So first one, it looks like a Russian export of fertilizer and commodities is gonna be unblocked, which is I mentioned yesterday, and there are more confirmations coming. So UN, Food and Agriculture Organization, booked a vessel to transport, I think, Russian fertilizer. So it's very likely that this grain deal, is going to be extended. One thing that Russia is requesting is to reconnect its Rossельхозbank, which translates like Russian Agricultural Bank, to SWIFT. And they state that without this bank being connected to SWIFT, it's impossible to unblock export of grains and fertilizers from Russia. So totally possible, very likely scenario. We'll see what happens. It's only November 18 when their existing grain deal expires and should be renewed. So we'll see what happens then, but there is high probability that that deal will be renewed, and there will be concession to the Russian side in terms of connecting this Rossельхозbank to SWIFT and essentially unblocking export of Russian agricultural commodities and fertilizer. Then there is sort of related topic is Erdogan, who is Turkish president, gave a speech recently where he said that West is attacking Russia without limitations. So just kind of probably we can put it in a bucket of potential Russian or Chinese allies, or sort of neutral side that just waits to see where things will turn. But it's very clear that Turkey has been Turkey initially helped Ukraine quite a bit. However, it's looking more and more that Turkey's distancing and trying to be sort of middle, kind of be negotiator, intermediary between two sides. And with the big sort of most important point is to actually, to benefit itself economically mightily, which Turkey is doing, because it's essentially receiving pretty much a significant portion of Ukrainian grain export, probably something like that they want to do with Russian. And so essentially Turkey has positioned itself very well for itself in this whole war. Then another topic is Russian and Iranian relationship, and they sort of continue developing, continuing getting stronger. So there was a phone call between Russian president and Iranian president where they discussed next steps in cooperation, and it wasn't mentioned, but it's obviously very clear. The cooperation means supply of more UAVs, and also potentially supplying missiles by Iran. So like those, let's say medium range, short range and medium, I think it was like 300 and 700 kilometers. And it's basically equivalent of the Soviet .U, which is not super precise, but hey, anything goes, they super cheap. So I'm sure that Russia wouldn't mind. Then there is another small piece of information from China. There are two major marketplaces in China for consumers, which are Alibaba and JD.com. So both of those withdrew its sales statistics. So they were supposed to publish the sales statistic, which they didn't. And it's obviously somewhat speculative, but the interpretation is the following, is that the numbers are not great. They probably, I would say, bad. and so they don't want to show it, which is very logical, because if there were good numbers, they would definitely publish those. And that really tells us that consumer in China is not doing well, which again confirms the initial thoughts that I shared, where I was talking about this real estate sales collapsing, and essentially consumer part of Chinese economy is broken, and the export part is also under significant pressure. So there is invisible slow motion implosion of the Chinese economy that for outsiders probably not visible, but it's happening there, and it's sort of continuing its way. So just as a reminder, on November 14th, there will be a meeting between US president and Chinese president, and that will be very important meeting. So that's we're looking forward towards to see what's going to happen there. Now let's move actually to Ukraine. There were no major Russian attacks against the Ukrainian power distribution network, so things remain the same. The network still hanging on, didn't collapse, so things kind of like sort of still there. Now let's walk through the front line, starting from very north, and then we're gonna go in a clockwise fashion. So the situation along the state border, somewhat quieter, a little bit more sort of activity, a little bit more elevated than, let's say, yesterday, day before yesterday, but still on the quieter side. Now let's jump to North Luhansk front line. Things here are pretty much the same. As you can see, Russian attacks, Ukrainian attacks, counterattacks. So it looks like the sort of axis of all of this attack moved here to this road from Kupiansk to Svatove. So that's the most active part of the front line. And then this one kind of like in the middle, where Ukrainian troops are trying to get to the river and essentially cross the river. As a summary, the sort of the bottom line of all of this is the status quo remains. No successes on either side. Now let's check what's going on North Donbass front line. And things here also very sort of the same, right? So Wagner mercenaries attacking, in typical locations, Bakhmut, Soledar. So far, no new reports of advances by those Russian troops today, which is, normal. And then, as you can see, Bakhmut and Soledar again, sort of focus of the Russian troops. Now let's look what's going on central Donbass front line. Things here are almost all the same as in the past days. So as you can see, this attacks out of the salient north of Avdiivka, and then this Pisky salient. I'm actually gonna look a little bit more in detail what's going on here, because things start to develop in the sort of worse and worse situation for Ukrainian side. So we'll look into that. And then Marinka, no sort of, they're just futile Russian attacks, and sort of similar in Pavlivka. But let's actually look at the situation, this Pisky salient. So this is, I sort of kind of like crossed the area that was captured by Russian troops over past probably 3 months plus mine. Yeah, I think it was since the end of very end of July, like July 28th. So this was where initial front line was more or less. So Pisky was Ukrainian stronghold, and there were a lot of Ukrainian strongholds along this road here that Russian troops were trying to capture and could not, but they finally managed to do that. So this is quite significant bridge in Ukrainian defenses, especially here up on the northern side. And as I mentioned yesterday, Russian troops captured this village Opetne, and then they are advancing in this Pervomaisky, right? So as you can see, this is the Russian attacks at Nevelsky, but it's almost like almost like a dead village essentially. As you can see, they made it took a while, but they made significant progress over this time, especially given that Ukrainian defensive lines here were super strong, were they've been built since like 2014. So this is kind of major loss, and as you can see, they start to kind of like surround, like not quite surround, but there is quite a bit of salient start to develop around Avdiivka. And as you can imagine, the next sort of direction of the attack, first they plan to capture Vodyane and then fully capture Pervomaiske, and then they're gonna move north towards Tonenke and Orlivka in this direction, and essentially create extremely difficult situation for Ukrainian troops and force withdrawal, right? So this is kind of like very simple plan. It may take still very long time for Russian troops to execute on this, and but we'll see. Maybe, you know, depends also on Ukrainian side. But so far, slowly but surely, Russian troops were moving forward in this area, and they kind of getting to the point where it's gonna start to be dangerous for Ukrainian side. Now let's check what's going on Zaporizhya front line. Things here are quiet, the same, no essential differences. As I mentioned, so now let's actually look at the whole situation. So as you can see, Russian troops withdrew. They are on the eastern side of Dnipro River. This Dnipro River here is essentially, well, I wouldn't say it's impassable, but it's suicidal to sort of create a bridgehead and attack across the river here. It's very wide, and Ukrainian troops don't have skills, knowledge, and don't have equipment to do anything like that. I mean, you can do it, but it's going to be like, I don't know, 100,000 dead soldiers. So so it looks like this, you know, both these groups will be redeployed, obviously, by Russian side somewhere here on the Zaporizhya front line, and Ukrainian side probably will also put something on the Zaporizhya front line. So I'll be updating as there is information of which units where. But as I said, the most promising Ukrainian attack could be, you know, sort of here towards Mariupol, a little bit west of Mariupol, or even like a little bit east of Mariupol, doesn't matter. But that would allow Ukrainian side to achieve quite significant progress, and it would be quite a victory if that were to happen. Whether it's going to happen is just another question. And then I saw some information in the Western newspaper saying that winter is going to be quiet. This is complete misconception. They totally don't understand the local climate, local weather, like local cultural approaches. So it's actually right now is the most difficult because it's very muddy right now due to the rains. But once you get into winter, everything is gonna like freeze up, and it's actually excellent time to attack. That's one of the best times to attack. So again, we'll see what happens, because Russian, as I mentioned before, Russian troops may also do their own offensive here, especially given that more and more of this conscript soldiers going to be arriving on the front line. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow. Bye-bye.